humans, hippies, earthlings, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and whoever you're lucky enough to be doing it to. I'm Bushka on Blitz, and I'm here to talk to you today about patch 3.8 equipment and some of the builds that I would be recommending for heavy tanks, medium tanks, light tanks, tank destroyers. I'm going to see how I go for time because basically this is going to be quite involved and complex, and I'm going to need to go through things and explain certain parts and why some things are good for some tanks and some things aren't so good for other tanks. And the reason I'm doing this is because I really think it's important that you guys, when they are making you pay money for this stuff, or gold if you want to unlock it quickly, it's important that you know which skills are worthwhile for you and why they're worthwhile, and which ones you should get first when you can only unlock one at a time. And it's going to be really important. Now, there are hundreds of tanks in the game. It is incredibly hard for me to actually go through with a fine-tooth comb and give you the build for everything. And when I do a full review of a tank, I will give you the build that I will be running for my equipment and my provisions and such right off the get-go. And that'll be great for individual tanks. But for the moment, I want to talk to you about heavy tanks. Now, heavies are pretty straightforward when they're a big heavy tank and their role is to be a big heavy tank. I'm going to talk to you about the IS-4. Now, the IS-4 is a typical, very, very well-armored tank with crappy gun handling. And I'm going to run through my build and why I've chosen that build and etc., etc. Now, one of the things that's important to remember here is, especially at tier 10, a lot of your tanks already have exceptionally good penetration values. And they also have premium ammunition. Now, if you were going to be firing premium ammunition when you have a problem penetrating, then it kind of negates the value of calibrated shells to a degree. If you don't fire Premo, if you are just a guy that struggles through your gaming in a heavy tank, a medium tank, or a light tank, and this is one of those things I just want to get out of the way, then calibrated shells is actually a really, really good option for you on any tank because it's going to give you a much better penetration value on your standard shells, which will actually save you money in the long run when you don't have to worry about penning with premium ammunition, and it will mean you'll have to reach for that gold ammo slot a lot less often. But for me, I'm always going to go gun rammer on pretty much every tank I can put it on, apart from a few notable exceptions. In the heavy line, there's not many of them. It would probably only come down to tanks like the Conqueror, which I'll show you why on the Conk you might be doing that. The Conqueror is a British heavy, and that means it's got Hesh as a high explosive shell. So you actually get your average penetration on your high explosive on the Conqueror is 120 millimeters, which is pretty bloody good. And if you go that route and you add that, you get 126 mils of Hesh pen. Now, that's a very, very long bow to draw. I can't imagine that I would use it like that, but that's about the only time I can imagine that it would be worthwhile using a pen over a rammer, unless, as I mentioned, you do struggle with cash and credits, because some of the tanks in the heavy lines do have rubbish penetration numbers. Now, let's get back to that IS-4, which I'm using as my prototypical heavy tank to talk about. So you'd go gun rammer. That would be the first thing you would get out of anything. Your second line in your vitality at the bottom for a heavy tank, a standard big armor heavy tank, is going to be module protection, especially with Russian heavies with pike noses. That's going to give you a lot more durability on your ammo rack. On your German heavies like the E100, the E75 and such, it will protect you from engine fires, the transmission fires and such. And it will also help with the suspension on the tank. So you're going to take less damage on the mobility side of things. There are certain tanks where you could seriously look at using the enhanced cabin protection, but my build wouldn't include that. The tanks I'm talking about there for heavies would be like the KV-5, where the R2-D2 keeps getting hit, the little turret at the front, and your driver dies every 30 seconds. That would be nice to have an extra bit of crew protection there, but you get so much more bang for your buck in a heavy tank with your protected modules. Something else to bear in mind, in the limited game time I've had, like the past day, I've played a lot of IS-5. and that's a cracking tank too. But I'm seeing a lot less camping from TDs because that synergy between binoculars and camo net is gone. It no longer exists. So you are fulfilling a far more realistic role as a heavy now, which I think is great, where you are up close and you are in the thick of the action and you really are pushing and being aggressive. And I like that. And that's going to be a lot more value for money if you're getting hit a lot, to protecting, your ammo rack, which is death. Like if your ammo rack gets damaged, even not just getting ammo racked, you get blown up. But if your ammo rack gets damaged and it takes your damage per minute down to a really, really low number, you're far less effective. Specializations on the bottom rung, optics. I'm putting optics on every single tank I own. I will not be putting camo net on anything. I ran extensive testing yesterday. You probably saw the video. And the fact is that if you already have good enough camo to not get spotted by a tank without optics, then you need optics to help you get the first shot in on that tank. Camo net is a very, very, very passive way of playing now. And on the move, even though you get a bonus from it, it's just not good enough. And with a heavy tank, your camo is so minuscule. It is so low that you are getting next to no benefit from it. It just doesn't help. You might say, well, you're not going to see them because their camo is so crap. Optics doesn't just help you see tanks that have moved or run around the battlefield because they have poor camo. It allows you to see tanks at a further view range that have fired. When you fire your gun, all your camo drops nearly to zero again, right? It's so low. Your camo rating is so low when you fire the gun that even if you've got exceptional camo, it drops back down to nearly the bottom of the scale. So having extended view range will allow you to see those tanks. With 290 meters of view range, because I'm running rations, one big fuel, one preventative kit on all my tanks. If you don't know why I'm running one preventative kit, go and watch my video I did recently on I did a test video on preventative kit versus double rations and one big ration of the other type. And preventative kit just gives more bang for the buck. And coupled with these, it makes a lot more sense. So if you've got a view range of 290 meters, that means anyone that fires within that 290 meters will be seen. If you use camo net and you drop off that 26 meters of view range down to, say, 266 meters of view range, 64 meters of view range, and someone fires at 274 meters and there's no one with eyes on them, you simply will not see that tank because your view range doesn't extend that far. So having more view range isn't just about spotting tanks with camo or any of that rubbish. It's also about seeing tanks in a wider field of view so that when they do fire, they pop on the radar. So there you go. My bottom row would be gun rammer, vitality would be protection of modules, and specialization would be improved optics. As we move up, this is where you're going to have a lot of different options. Supercharge is a very, very good option for some heavies. Again, let's have a chat about the Conqueror or the FV215B, for instance. With Supercharge, if you're not a frontline heavy that is using its armor all the time and you do play more of a support role and your primary method of delivering ammo is AP, but say you've got APCR and that's your premo. Well, APCR is more likely to lose penetration value over range than it's not more likely, it just does. It loses penetration value, right, over range, which is important. And if you're a support style heavy tank with a really, really good gun, like a 215B or like our good friend the Conqueror, and your premium ammunition is APCR, and you're going against very, very hard targets, APCR will help you tremendously. And so will Supercharge, the ability to actually give you plus 10% to shell velocity. So you'll have to lead targets by less and you'll lose 30% less penetration. It's not such a huge issue if you're running AP and heat, because AP loses less pen over distance compared to, APCR. And heat loses none. Heat is a superheated warhead, basically. It's going to inject the warhead, fucking everything, excuse the language. Everything gets very, very hot and you'll pen. So it doesn't matter if it hits, it's like HE, it doesn't matter where it hits, it's still going to have the same penetration value. So it's less valuable on tanks that are running AP and heat. and more value on tanks that are, say, running APCR anywhere in their loadout. That being said, it's almost a must-have on a tank like the Conqueror, because your aim time is already so freaking good that you don't need it. But most of the other big heavy tanks, like an IS-4, are going to need that help with the aim time. Have a look. Here we go. You can see your aim time on the IS-4 is 4.6 even after bringing the aim time down. Your aim time on a tank like the 215B is 2.8 after bringing the aim time down. So it's nearly half that of an IS-4. You don't need the aim time help there. You need the aim time help on the IS-4. So if you're a heavy tank and you have a big armor profile and a big bloody Russian gun, or a big unwieldy high aim time gun, use the enhanced gun lane drive. If you're a second line support tank that doesn't have brilliant armor stats, like a Tiger 1, for instance. Sorry, 1 second. Like a Tiger 1 or even a Tiger 2 would fall into this line. You'd use the Supercharge shell all the time. The next one is very, very straightforward for me with heavies. Every heavy tank should take plus 5% to armor. There is no heavy tank I can see that should touch the second one. Moving right along. Seriously, don't even come at me with that rubbish. Moving right along into the specialization thing, heavy tanks, you should be running improved traverse speed for the most part. It will allow you to deal with brawling up close and changing your armor angles quickly, far more effectively than just running at plus 7% to top speed. This is all about standard public gaming play. If you're in a clan that's doing tournament stuff and you have an IS-7 and your whole basis of, say, the Canyon map, Black Goldville map, is to get to the caves first and hold that position, then you need acceleration, and you can react accordingly, and you can put acceleration on, and you can get yourself an engine boost, and you can get there first. I'm talking about for everyday play in the field. And while top speed is great, you will always be getting a lot more value, in my opinion, out of the traverse. So, I mean, that just goes to show. Right, back at it. Sorry, I had to change a few things there. Where was I? Yeah, so for me, mobility in traverse is a real weak point, and this is one of the best parts about this whole configuration. It's allowed tanks with big armor that struggle with medium and light tanks to improve their traverse speed and actually get there a lot quicker, and it's going to make them much more capable of brawling and dealing with people that are more mobile themselves. You can take the top engine accelerator one. There are certain tanks I would never bother with that on, but they're mostly in the medium lines, namely the British tanks that seem to have an engine limiter on them and already have freaking exceptional acceleration. But we're on heavy tanks here. So my order for these would be gun rammer, and then optics, and then protected modules on the first line. On the second line, I would go for enhanced armor, then improved control, and then enhanced gun laying drive. And for the third and final line, we get to some very interesting situations. V-stab for me, across the board, if you can run vertical stabilizer, you should be running it. Coupled with enhanced gun laying drive, it's going to really allow tanks with big, nasty aim times to improve them no end. Dispersion is excellent. Refining your gun dispersion is good, but you are always going to be moving your turret around, and you're always going to be firing and driving and stopping and moving, and you just get a far more valuable, like especially if you're firing shots in brawling situations, that is going to be so much more effective vertical stabilizer than this refined gun. Now, everyone might say, well, but this is also potato cookie cutter stuff. It's not. It's not. You have little variations on a theme that you can put on all your tanks. And the best part about this is you don't run the same thing on heavies, mediums, lights, and TDs at all. You can change all this. Anyway, for me, on the top row, the first thing I would get would be vertical stabilizer. The only reason I would run the dispersion, I can't think of any reason on a heavy to run it, really, to be honest. Dispersion's all well and good, but V-stab, 15% to accuracy during movement and turret traverse. If you're not traversing your turret to take shots, you're not really playing the game. That would be the first one I get in the top line. The second one I would get would be Toolbox. Plus 25% to repair speed across the board. The enhanced tracks just repairs it from a critical to a standard condition. It does not completely stop you from getting tracked. That is a misnomer, which I'm probably responsible for. Toolbox is it. Everything is plus 25% to repair speed. And this is a key thing for a heavy. If you have a look here in your crew training, robustness will, at tier 6, will give you 24% to repair speed. And then you get enhanced repair speed from Toolbox, which is 25. So we're now at 49% to repair speed. And then we run a protective kit because it gives you this really cool stuff, which is plus 20%, plus 10% to speed of module repairs. So your modules are going to repair quicker. Plus 15% to protection of crew from injuries. And you've already, remember, got that up to, if you're using it over here, 10% to protection of engine, 10% to the protection of the tank, blah, blah, blah. 10% to crew protection over here. So if you're running a KV5 or something that gets a lot of crew injuries, you can get that up to 25% really quickly. This is why I love this new equipment system. Like, seriously, there's some cool stuff there. So if you're running the protective kit and you've got 49% already to module repairs, you've now got 59% to module repairs. So your tracks, your ammo rack, your optics, all that, your gun, everything like that. And it's also giving you durability to your ammo rack, again, for Russian tanks and German tanks that get set on fire. Hello, I'm talking to you, Tiger and E75 and E100, your little fireboxes. You're getting all this joy from them. Anyway, back to this. Plus 25% to repair speed. Hard to knock back. Then we get to the end of it. And this is probably the least important for me, but just in a purely basic sense for me, 10% to consumable cooldown speed is pretty much where I'm going. I can see either one being good there. But for me, if you're running a heavy tank and you're brawling and you're using your armor and you're up in the nasty stuff, you want to be able to rely on your cooldowns. You've got 2 kits, and you've got a adrenaline rush or your turbo boost, depending on what kind of a tank you're driving. And having all those cooldowns work quicker will really save you. Having a more of a support tank that deals damage as its primary mode of input, that is just a monster damage dealer like a 215B or a Conqueror, or an AMX 50B or something like that. You're gonna love the duration of consumables, engine boost, etc. Speaking of the AMX 50B, and you cannot run adrenaline on that anyway, so disregard that. It's an autoloader, so it gets the choice between penetration and improved ventilation. It's the only kind of tank that gets improved ventilation. You don't get that on any of the others. So if you are running it's a very, very straight up and down response now. If you're running a heavy tank and you get the opportunity to use vents, wow, I mean, you're pretty cool. I mean, you don't get your rammer, obviously, but you do get the ability to improve a little bit across the board on all the crew skill stuff like traverse speed, rate of fire, aim time, your dispersion, your view range goes up a little bit, your reload, turret traverse, all those kind of things, which is pretty good. I prefer penetration if you're having issues with penetration, but as I mentioned before, if you don't mind firing a bit of Premo, well, you can skip the calibrated shells. I will get to why I love them on certain tanks in just a wee bit. So that's your heavies. Hope you enjoyed that. I'm probably going to break this down into three different videos, and show you some more detailed builds. I'll just give you a look at my final build for my IS4. You may not agree with all of it. Leave your comments below. That's cool. Not everyone's going to agree, but if you, especially if you're a new player, this is the kind of guide you should be looking at to give you a hand and move you on up. There you go. It's pretty much all the left-hand column on the way down for a big, tanky frontline heavy. You would only move across to the Supercharge, probably for guys using AP APCR, sorry, and being second line support heavies like a Tiger 1, Tiger 2, Conqueror, Carnarvon, they could benefit tremendously from that, and they don't have any problems with their aim time. So if you're a gun toter, if your gun is what it's all about, that's where you want to be. If you are a walk up and just bash stuff kind of guy, that's where you want to be. And apart from that, pretty much I'd change it depending on tiny variations, but that would be your stock heavy loadout equipment wise. Hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, tell all your bloody friends about it. We just hit 30,000 subs, which is freaking amazing. You guys rock. Keep your chin up. Don't let the world get you down. And let's keep battling on. And if you want to sponsor the channel, click on the link. Rock on. Look after yourselves and stay safe on the